Alright, another draft physics presentation, I figure. Anyway, yeah, we'll do comments first. I just want to get to that Piro video, but we'll see how fast I can get through this stuff and whatnot. So, retard. So, kind of a lame response to a video that was to the Yale professor, just brushing over the two slit experiment. Here's our proof that they're waves. And anyway, so yeah, there's nothing you can say to that except time, rubber, or glue, or whatever. It's useless rubbish. It's not an argument of any kind. Alright, Cato the Wiser. Your favorite creator, scientist, has made a video, how do we know light is a wave? Yeah, is there something here that can be challenged? Yes, so I'm doing the other video where he states kind of affirmatively that he says it's a wave. I believe you have said single slit creates the pattern too, so maybe we can ask him to explain that. Yeah, well, I haven't just said it, it's just a fact. Single slits create pattern, interference style pattern. I was laughing along with you in reaction to the video, but treating cancer with radiation is pretty well established. So this is now the whatever it is, the dissident science group, the John Chappell science chat thing. And there are apparently a predominance of creationists, and so they're just doing this creationism, trying to sneak its way into science kind of crap. And they're, being careful not to say God too much. But that's all it is. Horrible. Anyway, he is from a generation where tons of good old boys were doctors and engineers. Some of them had quaint notions. It just surprised me that a doctor from my era was that bad. I actually went to school with a lot of pre-med engineer types in Gen X area. They were, look, that lunatic political guy, short, weaselly bastard Republican, who was arguing against evolution, was a doctor. Delivered babies. I don't know if that counts as being a doctor. Anyway, oh, look at this big pile of crap. Anyway, sorry, no offense. Hola. Okay, and such. Just want to tell you that I posted below under a video of channel Juranism. I don't know. The non-existent force of gravity and lots more. Well, it's just idiotic to talk about there being no force when whether you call it a force or not really doesn't matter. There's clearly the phenomenon of gravity, in which the author is debunking gravity, his theory of relative densities. Well, things do have different densities, which is, he claims, the cause of why things gravitate towards each other. Well, mass is associated with density per volume, blah blah blah. So I disagree with him, but I know you would also disagree with him, and he would disagree with you. Well, you haven't told me enough for me to disagree yet, but okay. I certainly disagree with anybody saying there's no force of gravity. That's just stupid. And because he works a similar way you like, I think it would be a good idea if you review each other, since both of you try to grasp how gravity works, including me. So, an important message to you. I am not here to troll or provoke. I am here to get the best of each of you to make my own opinion, which I also like to share with you. Okay. Well, it's sort of okay. As long as the opinion's in the boundaries of my theory and conventional science, which I wish to debunk. The extra stuff, I already seen all the cartoons, It's like after a while you've seen enough cartoon characters, right? If you can name 5, then okay, there. I don't need to know the 7th and the 400th and the 900th cartoon character. I just don't need to. So avoid insulting me. Well, it's not an insult. I'm just pointing out how I have so many neurons, and if I waste them on every crazy theory made up by every crazy fuck, I won't have room for anything else. I am not the one who should be targeted. We are all on one side. Well, that's just crazy. I'm on the right side. I'm for good and truth and getting it right. I'm against getting it wrong. We're against the mainstream science on basic rules of nature. Agreed? Well, I don't know if I'd put it that way, but we're against them because they're not using the scientific method anymore, in the sense they don't repeat any experiments, and they have no discipline at all, and they draw conclusions based on the scantest pieces of evidence. Here is the text posted under the link. Juranism. I just came across your channel called DraftScience, where the guy who challenges anybody who dares to debunk his theory of force bits, that is behind gravity. In a way, it reminds me of your theory of relative densities, but unlike you, he has a cause for existence of low-pressure areas. Yes, I have a force that's actually made of something. Yay! He claims that each object with mass is bombarded from force bits which come from space equally from all directions, and the two objects are close to each other. They create a barrier, a shadow. Well, they create an absorption, a sponge. The sponge absorbs the energy, moves, and the price of moving is it absorbed the energy, which means it didn't get where it was going, which means the thing that doesn't get the energy has a low pressure on one side, which they cast on each other object. That is why area of low pressure is created, and that's why they mutually attract. Yes, so that's just basically what I said. So he completely denies that gravity can be induced within each atom. Well, certainly to make the atom absorb more energy, then okay, but that doesn't seem very likely unless you make more electrons and protons. He claims gravity is the pushing force on each atom by those cosmic bits of force. Yes. Besides this, in my opinion, the more important part is that I figured out the magnetism thing that fits also with the same bits. All you gotta do is polarize them. Polarize the force instead of polarizing just the objects, and the whole thing fits together. A fundamental error he is in my opinion, he pretty well debunks my proponent physicist. His range is very broad. He seems to be a complex physicist having good level of awareness about all fundamental experiments based on which current physics explains stuff. Well, I've certainly watched a lot of physics content. I really recommend you check him out and maybe challenge him, make a video debunking his debunk. He openly expresses himself that he likes this, and he really does. No, I really don't like it. I don't like that it's taken all these years. I don't like any of this, frankly. But broken has to be fixed. When there's disagreement, you got to fix it. That's my compulsion. That's my compulsion. I'm just letting you know, people, if you want to do any psychoanalysis, I've always been a compulsive about fixing things. Now, when I was a kid, I was a little bit compulsive about breaking things also, so I could fix them. Because I wanted to know how it worked, so if I needed to fix it, I knew how it worked, that kind of thing. But this is always how my brain worked. It looked at the world and it found broken all over the place, found something to complain about, something not right. And I see something not right, and you say, there's got to be a way to fix it. Yeah, I'd see people on the street with one leg or something and say, that's broken, it's got to be fixed. I'd do that. I'd worry about it all day long. I'd be thinking about, can't they fix that? For example, his favorite object of debunking is Ken Wheeler. Well, that's really not one of my favorites at all, because he doesn't say anything. I mean, he just talks and talks and talks and doesn't say anything, and people eat it up like he's explaining something. He's explaining nothing. There's no explanation anywhere, and he does so in really a funny way, so you will also entertain yourself. At least I am laughing the whole video through. More, this guy does it for years and has only 2,000 followers, and like 200 guys follow his videos on average, and he feels very depressed that other total ignorance and liars have millions of views. Well, I don't know if they have millions, but yeah, on their podcast. Well, I don't know if that's what you call these things, but anyway, in which they present fictitious theories full of lies. They present weak theory and weak evidence. Yeah, and they exaggerate, which is the same as lying. Please check and consider to promote him a bit. He deserves bigger publicity since he really adds educational value. That's right. I actually explained what's missing in all this crap and how logically you have to have. You can't just say bent space or bent geometry. You do have to go a little bit further. He is very keen on what he does. He reads each one of the comments below his video and explains you can learn on magnetism, electricity, anything. So his role is unique. He enables us to understand, and he really understands the physics very well, and I think you would like him. Yeah, well, I it's just, hard to disagree. But I could. Doing my best. No. I'm doing what I end up doing because I'm a stupid human. You work similar way. You stop the video of others comment explain like this type of work because it really helps people get the point. And it's funny how so many people complain, oh, how unfair. You read every word in the comment. Oh, you played every second of the video. This approach enables me to form my own opinion and write you clearly to what I object, and it raises our mutual level of understanding in physics, and that, I guess, is the main goal of all of us. I wish it was the goal, actually. Other people have, they have agendas. They want something else to be true, and they're making the physics fit their something else. Thanks for considering. Here's the link. Well, very nice of you to post that. Yes, thank you. Lots of writing. I do appreciate people explaining their position. Very good. All right, so same guy. Then I have a thought experiment for you. If you could elaborate, please, on the below task. My interest is to learn the process of how elementar quantum of energy. Yes, so it would be a little bit moving the speed of light. And I would argue it's either an electron bit or a proton bit in terms of its polarization. They call it Planck's quantum, right? Well, Planck is the guy who really started this whole idea of understanding that the universe isn't something all the way down, that it appears that it's clumpy, okay, that there's lumps in it, grains of sand, and that's what you have, grains of sand. Radiated by an electron in atom number 1, okay, a quantum is radiated by an electron. You can't radiate the force, so that's not quite right. In atom number 1, how it spreads through the space and how it gets absorbed by another electron in another atom number 2 in the space in which the electron jumped into a higher orbit and consuming this quantum. So the higher orbit stuff is, again, I'm not saying they don't expand and contract, that is, atoms don't get bigger and smaller based on orbits, but this is all just their model. So there's no actual physical facts that demonstrate that there's anything really called an energy level beyond the fact that there's an amount of pressure that the electrons feel between them depending on the number of electrons. So if you have 8 electrons, there's a certain amount of in an orbit, in a position from the nucleus, and that's really all we're talking about. It's distance from the nucleus, and that those distances are quantized because any extra energy, that is, any extra rubber band you add, you always have to add a certain amount of rubber band. That is, when you add extra force, you're adding a clump of force, and it will push things apart a certain amount. And how much that amount is will change with distance. Obviously, the bigger the atom gets, the more electrons it has in an outer ring. You could argue that it would take more clumps to make that ring big enough, circumference-wise, so the distances would get smaller between the energy levels the further you go out, theoretically. but the energy levels in tight, you can understand that one quanta, in the ring, the smallest ring, one quanta of energy, one bit of reflection between the electrons. So you add a little bit more reflection, one more ping pong ball into the paddles. So when the paddles are close, it's going to add up to a lot of energy. When the paddles are further apart, it's less energy because it's less impacts. So it expands it less. But that's how I would restate the idea of adding energy and why energy creates energy levels in the electrons. I suppose this space for me is spherical room. In the middle there is one atom and there is a second atom at a distance 300 kilometers. Okay. Yeah, well, everything's decided by this repulsive force in terms of these distances. Okay, so technically the electrons are attracted to the proton, but they're in association with other electrons. That's why atoms have to be made. They have to be constructed under circumstances, because they're really fixing things in positions. Okay, it's not like one electron is all by itself and there's another electron, and this one moves towards this one, this one could go anywhere. Well, in an atom, the electron can't go anywhere. If it tries to go closer to the proton, and there's 2 electrons over here, right? So there's 3 electrons, and it wants to get closer to the proton. Well, if it tries to get closer, the trick is it has to get closer to these other 2 electrons to do that, and they repel it. And so it's that repulsive force initially. Until you break that barrier, then it's all attraction. Once you're past these 2 electrons, once you go past the halfway point, once you go past that line between the 2 other electrons, then you're getting pushed, plus the proton is attracting you. So that you're getting both. You're getting repelled by the electrons and you're getting attracted by the proton in the same direction, theoretically. And so that's another phenomenon that's sort of part of the standard model, is an understanding that it sort of works that way, in terms of something has to break through a barrier. The barrier would be the repulsive force of the electrons, and once it breaks the barrier, there's an incredibly strong force that attracts the electron. And the atoms sort of work the same way. When they bang into each other, sometimes they have to hit each other pretty hard to stick to each other. They have to have a certain amount of momentum to break the repulsive barrier of the electrons. Okay, how is it radiated by an electron? Is energy handed over to already existing energy photons? No, there's just a bunch of this noisy bits, these little energetic bits, and you just have to think that you're something that has no will. So you're an electron or a proton. You have no will of your own. And all you really do is go where the pressure tells you to go. So all of the bits inside of an atom are going where the pressure tells them to go. They don't do anything on their own. They just don't have any mind of their own, so to speak. They're completely, the force tells them what to do. How is it, I already did that. Or a new energy wave, I guess, photon is initiated. So you can't create them, you can't destroy them, so one has to come from somewhere else to imbalance a system. Into which directions? All around, like a sound wave? Like I said, waves are an emergent property in anything that has bits moving. But there's no fundamental wave function. There's just the fact that you can send a lot of army men all at once in every direction, and it would look like a wave of soldiers. It's not really a wave of soldiers. What force accelerates energy into energy wave photon? What force? So again, now they have perpetual energy. That's just the way they are. The photon bits, the bits that make gravity, the bits that make magnetism. It's all the same bits. They're just polarized, or you can send them at a frequency. So it's all the same stuff in just different configurations. And they're elemental. That's it. They're elemental. They're not created by the universe as far as we know, and they're not destroyed by the universe, and they just keep going forever. the energy of them. The momentum is never the momentum is never destroyed. It's only captured, only trapped. Trapped. That means you absorb the energy of something, it hits you, and you keep it by trapping it. And by trapping it, what you've kept is the direction it was going when it hit you. And all the other directions cancel out. You go as much up as you go down, as this way as that way. And the only thing that's left is the initial direction, is the one that's durable. So you possess the momentum of the energy, and that momentum has to be spread over all of your little bits to move them all a little bit. So the matter, by moving much slower, absorbs a force. One photon moves me a little tiny bit, and I move very, very slowly when one photon hits me, really slowly. So I've changed something going the speed of light into something going much slower than the speed of light. Alright. Excuse me. Okay, what force accelerates energy? So energy doesn't get accelerated. It always travels the same speed. All the force bits travel the same speed. They never accelerate. They accelerate bits of matter by the matter absorbing them. Alright. What is the mechanics of energy wave photon to propagate through space? There is, as far as I know, they have little legs and they just run. I have sorry, can't explain some things. Too small a bit. Don't know if we'll ever know the answer to those questions, right? Hard to imagine what device you could ever invent to measure it, because the invented device would somehow have to be smaller than the elemental bits. You have to be more elemental. And I just don't think you're ever going to find that in the universe. I think these are the elemental bits, and that's just the way it is. What keeps it propagates through space at constant speed? Again, that's like asking me, what color is it? What's its or asking what's its favorite color? I mean, how the hell am I going to know that? I can't know that. Are there any losses of energy through space? No, you can't create or destroy the stuff moving the speed of light. You can't do it. If so, let's suppose there's no losses and this quantum can be fully absorbed by another electron. It doesn't get fully absorbed, it only gets absorbed. That is, it temporarily traps it. Now, the temporary could be a billion years, but that's what it does. It just traps it for a while. To be able to jump to a higher orbit. Again, it doesn't jump anywhere, it's pushed somewhere. And the push is just a fact that if I have two ping pong paddles and I bounce balls between them and I add another ball, the paddles will move apart. If it was spread around as a second wave as energy ring, will it disappear from the ring and fold all the way into the atom? Well, like I said, I think it would be preposterous to say the force is a sound wave, okay, and all that crap. That would take a lot of force bits to make a wave front. So to make a big row of soldiers, I need a lot of soldiers. You're not going to call it a wave of soldiers if there's one soldier, right? You're not going to be fooled. You're going to say, hey, that's not a wave of soldiers, that's one soldier, it's one guy, Joe. But if I have Joe, Bob, Bill, Jim, John, I have a whole bunch of soldiers, well, then you'll be confused and say, oh, it looks wavy. Same thing. Alright. Energy will disappear. No, you just, no. Would this be an instantaneous transfer of energy that collapses into a second atom? No, you can't collapse something into a second atom and all that. That's just, the reason why atoms are made inside suns is because of the intense density of pressure. The mass is dense and the pressure is intense. And so all these little bits are really close together. They're under a tremendous amount of pressure. A whole bunch of them in a confined space. And that's how they get formed. And then the ones that are in a configuration, like an arrangement of magnets, if I have 8 magnets and one in the middle that's the reverse pole, well, then I can make something that is durable. But if I have 7, it's not durable, that kind of thing. So there's rules. So there's, well, as far as we know, there's only 100 configurations that are durable. That is, they can survive outside of the high pressure. because the arrangement is really, 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 really solid. Alright, or what is the mechanism of one atom seeing the other? It only sees based on how much force is behind it. One paddle only sees the other paddle based on what the paddle shoots at it, reflects to it. We only see what the force reflection. Can wave photon be gravitationally attracted? Force can't affect the force. Can light be bent passing through a gravity field? Well, I've answered that question 4 million times. Obviously, I don't think it's possible to bend a force. If not, what is the reason why it cannot? Well, the reason is basically this simple argument that the interactions are at the speed of light in always the same kind of way. And a reflection, if the two things are the same, you can't tell a reflection from a complete miss. There's no way to tell the difference if the two things are identical. Let's see. How small are the bits of force you refer to in your theory? Well, they're obviously really, 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 really small. Nothing gets smaller, so that's what I would say. They're the smallest thing. Now, you want me to say something like they're 10,000 times smaller than an electron, let's say. I don't know. Is there any limit to the smallness of them? They're all the same size. The limit is the Planck thing. The limit is almost irrelevant. They're the smallest thing, so it doesn't matter how small the smallest thing is. How do these bits look like? Geometry do they have? Is it a wave? No, they're not a wave. I guess that's what that word is. It's got to be, right? It was just the V and the W are broken. I have, again, I don't even know why you would think I would have some place to glean that knowledge from. Like there's some experiment they could do that would possibly glean that information. If wave is wave propagating linearly, again, wave is just a shit word, shit concept. It's an emergent property. It isn't an elemental. If you want to talk about real physics or real elemental fundamental function of physics, wave is just kind of nonsense. The only important thing is that yes, sometimes things are shot at a frequency. And frequency and resonance of frequency are very important concepts in physics. But you don't need to understand waves, you just need to understand stuff, momentum, moving at a frequency. And it can move in a very straight line, or a whole bunch of it can be irradiated from an object in any direction. See, an electron can shoot this way, it can shoot that way, it can shoot this way, shoot this way, shoot this way. That's why we call it a wave. It's because at any one moment it shoots stuff in any one of these directions. And so the scatter, essentially, of its shooting, the fact that it doesn't shoot straight, shoots in all directions, means that over time we'll call that a wave, but it's not really a wave. Or as a plane, or specifically, I don't know what that means. Thank you for your answers. Oakley doke. Is there an experiment? I'll have to go to the other guy's video, so I will do that. Is there an experiment proving light is something other than wave? There's experiments, and now your job is to interpret the information. Say, what does the experiment demonstrate? What's shown by the experiment? I would argue all of the experiments are evidence, that photons are quanta, little bits of momentum, and that you can eject them at a frequency. They're bullets, and you can shoot them at a frequency, or you cannot shoot them at a frequency. If you shoot them at a frequency, we can detect them as electromagnetic radiation. If you don't shoot them at a frequency, we're not too good at detecting them any other way than doing this, gravity. And if you shoot them polarized, that is, you filter all of the red ones this way and all the black ones that way, you'll create a magnet. But that's about all I can say is that there's a transfer of momentum. You're allowed to think that transfer is perturbation of dominoes, dominoes flipping, through some medium in a wave-like manner, or you can just think they're soldiers, and I can send my soldiers one at a time, or I can send them as a front. And yeah, but that's all I can tell you. The experiments are what they are. Whether they prove one way or the other, that's not the intent of the experiments. I mean, the experiments are just demonstrating phenomenon. Again, I can't tell you. I'm just telling you what makes sense to me logically. And it doesn't make sense to me logically to say a quanta of energy encounters two slits or one impediment, and it says I have to split into two and go both ways. That's not very logical. Alright. So the same guy again, Ola and such. And here I have a hard task for you. In March 12th, 2012, on Soho NASA instrument from some unidentified spheres, now he's going to get crazy, got captured in the sun's corona. What explanation do you have? How come they did not gravitationally interact with the sun? So in unidentified spheres, see, this is, I don't know what to tell you. I'm not really here to debunk UFO physics. Just for your info, the same day we experienced a magnetic pulse reversal on Mars, there was a storm. Says you. So something very weird is happening. Any idea? Well, you seem a little gullible, frankly. I'm sorry. I'm sure this is crap. Shall we bother going to the link we'll go real quickly, but I'm sure it's crap.
If you look back here in the back behind this one, this loop is from yesterday and then up to today. See one start to form back here as the Earth passes between the satellite and the sun. I guess that's the Earth. I've never seen it do acrobatics quite like that. I'm not saying the Earth did acrobatics, but see how it was horizontal and vertical. But nevertheless, it's
well, whatever. So he doesn't even know what the objects really are in the frame. I mean, obviously this satellite would have to be an insane distance from the Earth for the Earth to be some little object on the sun. So I don't know what satellite this is, but sorry, this is a million views. I'm sure this is just plain stupid bullshit. I'm sure NASA has a semi-relevant, rational explanation. But yeah, again, I only have so much time. I can't be debunking every wacko theory. I think you're really stretching. If you think the sun is causing earthquakes, I mean, just think of the Earth is huge. It's under a tremendous amount of gravitational pressure. The surface objects are pushing constantly in towards the center. It's got a bunch of swirling mass in the middle, molten crap from all the energy of that interaction, that gravity. It's being tugged on by the moon and the sun and all the other planets. And yes, of course, there's an earthquake now and then. I mean, fuck. Duh. Waves are force spin for you. So I really hate these completely undescribed crap. I mean, what the fuck is this? I find it really obnoxious that you think, Mark says I should waste my time on this fucking link. I doubt that it's worth my time, but we'll see.
Meet the Landers, the revolutionary new standing desk from iMovie.
A radiometer demonstration. I've already seen this shit 4 million times. This isn't miraculous either. So what's the big point here? Alright, this is a waste of time. So he has no waves or force bits. Of course it's force. Photons, rays of light, rays of quanta, rays of bullets coming from the sun. Shithead. So if gravity is really a push, then shouldn't I weigh less when a large or nearby celestial object is directly overhead? Well, technically, you do, dumbass. Do you see the proportion difference? Okay, you have this much gravity on Earth. Earth is huge. You know, the diameter between me and the other side of the Earth is whatever, 4,500 miles or something of stuff. And you're going to put some little object much, much further away. Here I am 4 feet from the Earth. Okay, and I have this much gravity. And then you're going to put an object way, way far away that's much, much tinier and say, well, how come I don't float up? So you're that dumb? Anyway, so if gravity is really pushed, then shouldn't we weigh less where the large or nearby celestial object is directly overhead? Yeah, if you were closer to it, you obviously would. There's a point between us and the moon where there's zero gravity, right? No gravity. In the sense we can't measure any. This won't work anymore. It won't fall towards the Earth and it won't fall towards the moon. There's equal amounts. So everything just sits there and says there's equal on both sides. Shit. How about when I am deep underground? Well, when you're deep underground, what do you think you could just dig a hole all the way to China and the hole would stay round and fine and no problem? What happens when you go underground? Oh, there's pressure. So look at like water, for example. You go down 10,000 feet in water, the pressure gets insane. And that's just 10,000 feet. Well, the matter's doing the same thing. It just isn't as movable as water. But there's just as much pressure, that, physical pressure on all those rocks and all that crap. A kid making shadow puppets understands more than this shitty Batman guy. Yeah, well, I agree that he's an idiot, but, I don't know. Kid making shadow puppets probably has more creativity anyway, and can think outside of whatever, the Borg box. So space is so empty. Yes, you got that right. Light photons can travel in a perfectly straight path from point of origin for billions and billions of light years without being distorted or impeded by any fields through the vastness of space. That's right, it just seems a little preposterous to think it's some wavicle and that the photon is really sending photons all throughout the whole universe, and that somehow when it lands here in my eye from a billion light years away, that all the other photons disappear. Oh, fuck you. Alright, the math map is not the territory. Well, I really hate that phrase. The whole point is models should be consistent, and when you find inconsistencies, parts that sound like crap, like this part that the photon is sending a wave energy through the whole universe, and somehow it retracts all of that wave energy when it decides where it actually went. That sounds like such a fucking pile of shit. I don't know how every person doesn't react to that and go, that sounds like such a pile of shit. What? Have you not heard of gravitational lensing and seen the pictures? The pictures of what? That again demonstrate this can't be accurate because math says this should be a consistent, rigid geometry. And none of the images have rational geometry. None of them make any sense. The circles are all bent and crooked. There's all kinds of inconsistencies. You can see all kinds of details, like the galaxy was being pushed into pieces. And you shouldn't be able to see any of the individual suns in those galactic Lansing images. By Einstein's own admission, you should see a tiny, tiny little shred of line, and that's it. A tiny, tiny. Because gravity doesn't make a good lens. The inverse square law is a shitty lens. So at best, under ideal circumstances, you could get a little tiny shred line. You shouldn't get some big blobby line and be able to resolve individual suns. That's preposterous. It makes no fucking sense. So if you had any knowledge of physics, you'd understand that the lensing images, we don't have any. Frankly, we don't have any solar lensing images, right? We really don't. And of our sun, lensing anything that are any good. And the galactic ones, like I said, none of them make any sense mathematically. They all have huge mathematical flaws in them, huge physical geometric irregularities in them that make it impossible that this could be lensing. All right, let's see what Masterpool said. Those images are exceptions. Look at how many distant galaxies are in deep field images. Yeah, well, that's the other thing. Well, why isn't, if lensing were true, it should be everywhere. There should be a ton of it, because there are places we know there's an incredible amount of gravity and it's all black space and things are behind it, and we should be able to see all this crap getting lensed, and we don't see anything getting lensed. So there's another, the proof of these images being wrongly interpreted is the amount of evidence that demonstrates that is voluminous. Because of all the inconsistencies. If the theory were true, all the stuff that should be existing, there should be tons of stuff that happens that's not happening. It's clearly not the right answer. My comment was pertaining to how these artifacts of light are not distorted more. Well, yes, by their reasoning. If space was full of an ether field, none of those faraway galaxy photons could travel at such distances and produce a clear, coherent image. The lenses are just huge gas ice bubbles of material atmospheres deflecting the light. Well, I would argue they're just evidence of previous explosions in the universe. They're smoke rings, for fuck's sake. Photons not bending their path. A glass sphere passing in front of an object can make similar images. Well, that would be more like a scatter argument. And I don't think the galactic lensing images are produced by scatter. They're clearly can't be produced, because even scatter would have a consistent geometry, and they don't have it. Alright, Andrea, blah blah. The video you're reacting to was not meant to be a statement about what light actually is. An amazing pile of crap. So the guy titles the video with capital letters, asserting that we have proof light's a wave, and you say that's not what he meant to do, was to assert a proof. And then he provides the evidence for wave theory, and you're saying that's not what he's trying to do. I mean, what the fuck are you talking about? It was an explanation of an old theory of light, so why didn't he say that, hey, this is what people think, but I have a better answer. But first let me tell you what they think. That's not what he did. You're going to be vastly disappointed if you think there's going to be a punchline where he says something rational. He believes this crap. That would be useful for viewers to understand for his future videos. Why would it be useful at all? Why would asserting a bunch of inaccurate information about past experiments, citing the Young experiment as proof of wave theory when Young's experiment was entirely unremarkable, it shouldn't even be acknowledged in history as meaningful at all, because Newton had already done both surface experiments. He had both done the facing out surface experiments, and then he did the facing in experiments. And then rings are actually named after him, Newton's rings. I mean, it's just so ironic that adult physicists can't acknowledge that Young's experiment was crude and utterly meaningless in terms of providing any new useful information. It provided no new information. It doesn't say anything Newton hadn't already discovered and said. It's just such a, it's so egregious a perversion of the history. It's Newton's surface experiments. Young is meaningless. He is well aware that the information is outdated. Where's your evidence of that? I mean, how do you say something like this to me? Where's the evidence that he said something in that video or implied something in that video that this isn't what I argue is the truth? Where? Where do you get that indication from? You are fucking crazy. Hi, Gary. Hope you are settling in well. Well, good days, bad days. Into your new surroundings. Yeah, well. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, there is a suspicious amount of thumbs up on this video. Well, yeah, I would argue that, yes, it got normal ratings, which doesn't seem possible. David trying to earn brownie points, I wonder? Yeah, who knows? Yeah. It was funny that the video actually, it was 10% thumbs up for a while. I mean, it's a little below that now, but that was unusual. So maybe other people, though, really don't like comic physics. Maybe other people who have some give a damn about the truth and the difficulty of finding it and the work that has to be done to do it. And these Barney the Dinosaur assholes are just dirty in the water. A fucking scumbag. I'm funny, and he's not even fucking funny. I mean, it's so bad. I mean, it's just so bad on so many levels. I mean, it's jerk science, and jerk science done badly. And you're just saying, oh man, the world really has gone flipping crazy. I mean, I see it like I said, this new environment, I'm seeing all kinds of shit in the world, and you're just saying, how do people live this way? How do they talk that way? What the fuck are they wearing? And you're just amazed that this is what the world's running on now, the fumes that it runs on. Things just done in reverse order, and you're just like, you don't even know how people survive their day. It's so dysfunctional in terms of efficiencies. I just don't know how people find this garbage, trite presentation of physics. Who's watching? I don't even see how 10-year-olds could find the guy funny. He's fucking, creepy. Maybe that's it. They're just watching for the creepy factor. But anyway, I've just given up on trying to figure out what people are doing and why they're doing it. I just have to do my thing, and that's all I can do. And I can't do it their way. I have to do it my way and such. It's got to be that way. So anyway, we really don't have time for Piro. So till the next time, maybe we'll get around to Piro's video. It was just a real brief, superficial discussion of something that we already know. It's not mysterious. Hold on a second. Interruptions and such. Alright, I guess I'm back. Where the hell was I? Finishing up in some way or other. Whatever. I've already said it. Junk science. There should be. You just would think that there would be more people who would find it offensive when, these trespasses against doing things the right way. There should be more people who are upset that things aren't done the right way. And there's just so few. It's like the whole solar panel thing, right? I've not been able to generate any energy in people to do anything to fight this idiotic plan of putting panels on roofs. It's just so fucking wasteful. The United Nations should have a law against it. It's so wasteful. It's an insult to solar energy, okay, to do it badly. It's just, not that I think solar energy is the answer, but if you're going to spend the money and steal rape the poor countries for their minerals and do all this other crap, if you're going to do all that shit and make these stupid panels, well then at least deploy them in the best possible manner. And if we're going to use government tax subsidies, yes, subsidize doing it the right way, not the wrong way. And the only reason why we're doing it the wrong way is so a bunch of people can make a bunch of money doing it the wrong way. Just a bunch of extra work, just a bunch of make work. It's just break it and then pay somebody to fix it. Pay somebody to break it and then pay somebody to fix it. Just waste. Fucking stupid fucking people. People are just way too dumb. It's just a fact. You're all too fucking stupid. Shit. Anyway, and you just won't be educated. I mean, I've tried. You just won't be. You're just belligerently ignorant. So, till the next time. And such. Buttons. Ugh.